Welcome to Nightfall Narrative, where we delve into the stories that haunt the lonely roads and quiet places. What you're about to hear is a testament to why some warnings should always be heeded. We're all taught to be good Samaritans. It's a lesson that's hammered into us from childhood, in stories, and through the quiet expectations of society. See someone in need, you offer a hand. It's supposed to be what makes us human. But I'm telling you this story because some lessons, no matter how well-intentioned, can lead you down a road you will never, ever come back from. Not in one piece, anyway. I'm telling you this now so you don't have to learn the way I did. So you don't make the same mistake I made. A mistake that has me checking my rearview mirror every single time I drive, even in broad daylight. A mistake that made me question the very idea of a helping hand. I'm telling you this now, as a warning, etched from a night I can never scrub from my memory. Asterisk never help anyone on the side of the road. The day it happened started completely, painfully normal. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of day that feels like the world is holding its breath right before winter. I had a 6-hour drive ahead of me from my city apartment to my parents' house way out in the country. My mom had a big birthday coming up, and I'd promised I'd be there a few days early to help get things ready. It was a drive D made 100 times, a familiar ribbon of asphalt I could probably navigate in my sleep. I left later than I wanted to. A last-minute work email kept me at my desk until the sun was already dipping below the skyline, painting the concrete in shades of orange and bruised purple. By the time I was really on my way, leaving the city streets for the long, straight shot of the interstate, dusk was settling in. The first couple of hours were easy. The hum of the engine, a solid playlist of 2000s rock, and the rhythmic flash of passing lane markers created a comfortable, hypnotic bubble. It was just me, my thoughts, and the road. The transition is always gradual on that route. The 4-lane highway gives way to a 2-lane highway, the traffic thins out, and the glow of civilization fades in the rearview mirror. You trade the orange of streetlights for the stark, silver white of the moon. This is where the real drive begins. The part of the country where cell service is a crapshoot, and the distance between towns is measured in empty miles and dense forests that crowd right up against the road. I remember feeling weirdly calm. The air was getting colder, and I'd rolled up the windows, which made the silence in the car feel huge. The trees on either side were mostly bare, their skeletal branches reaching up like black veins against the darkening sky. I was thinking about my mom, about the look on her face when I surprised her. I was thinking about sleeping in my childhood bed, the one that's a little too short for me now. Normal thoughts. Grounded thoughts. Then something strange happened. A sudden, brilliant flash of green lit up the entire sky. It wasn't lightning. There were no clouds. It was a silent, breathtaking pulse of light, maybe a meteor breaking up way up in the atmosphere. It lasted for 2 seconds and then was gone, leaving behind a blackness that seemed even darker than before. It was the sort of thing that snaps you right out of highway hypnosis. I remember reading somewhere that weird events like that can actually make people more likely to be helpful, to engage with what's around them. At the time, I didn't know that. I just felt a strange jolt of alertness. The quiet of the road no longer felt peaceful. It felt watchful. It was maybe 15 minutes after that flash of light that I saw it. Up ahead, on the right shoulder, a pair of hazard lights blinking weakly. As I got closer, I could make out the shape of an older sedan, hood propped open. A classic breakdown. My first instinct, my city instinct, was to keep going. Mind your own business, it's safer. My foot stayed on the gas. I pictured all the scenarios. It's a trap, someone jumps out of the woods. I've seen the movies. I could feel the risk in the air. But then another thought pushed its way through. What if it was real? What if it was just some poor soul, stranded out here in the middle of nowhere with no cell service? The temperature was dropping. It would be a long, cold night. I thought about the times my own old car had died on me and a stranger had stopped to help. I thought about my mom, who would be horrified if she knew I'd just driven past someone in need. It's a weird calculation your brain makes, weighing your own safety against the impulse to do good. I was still debating, my head going back and forth when I passed the car, and in the brief sweep of my headlights, I saw her. A figure standing by the driver's side door, a woman. She looked small, and her posture was just one of pure defeat, shoulders slumped. SH. E didn't wave her arms or try to flag me down. She just watched me go, a silhouette of despair. That's what did it, the quietness of it all. It didn't feel like a trap. It felt like genuine trouble. Damn it, I muttered to myself. Against every screaming alarm bell in my gut, I slowed down, checked my mirror, and pulled onto the gravel shoulder about 100 feet ahead of her. I sat there for a long moment with the engine idling, my heart thumping a little too fast. I left my headlights on, lighting up the scene behind me in my side mirror. I could see her silhouette start to walk towards my car. I took a deep breath, cut the engine, and stepped outside. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the crunch of my own shoes on gravel and the tired click, click, click of her hazard lights. The air was crisp and smelled of damp earth and pine. The world felt vast and empty. She walked toward me slowly, almost like she couldn't believe I had actually stopped. As she stepped into the light from my car, I got my first good look at her. She was probably in her late 40s with dark hair and a messy bun. A few strands were stuck to her forehead with sweat, despite the cold. She wore a simple jacket, jeans, and sneakers. She looked like a teacher or a librarian. She looked normal. Her face was lined with worry, but as she got closer, it softened into profound relief. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice a little shaky. "Thank you so much for stopping. I was starting to think I'd be out here all night." "No problem," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, keeping a bit of distance between us. "Car trouble." "It just died," she said, waving back at her car. No warning, no sputtering. 1 second I was driving, the next, everything just shut off. Engine, lights, everything. My phone has no signal out here. I don't even know where I am really. The story was plausible. I'm no mechanic, but I knew that could happen. And the cell service dead zone was infamous on this highway. Everything she said lined up. The threat meter in my head, which had been screaming red alerts a minute ago, ticked down into a cautious yellow. "Let me take a look," I offered, more out of obligation than any real hope I could fix it. I'm not a mechanic, but you never know. We walked back to her car. I peered under the open hood. The engine was clean, surprisingly clean for an older car. No obvious signs of trouble, no smoke, no burning smell, no loose hoses. I asked her to try the ignition. She slid into the driver's seat and she turned the key. Nothing, not a click. The dashboard stayed dark. The car was a brick. "Yeah, looks like a dead battery or a failed alternator," I said, stating the obvious. "I have jumper cables, we could try that." "Already tried," she sighed. Her own cables were coiled neatly in her trunk. "It won't take a charge. It's like the battery is completely disconnected, but the terminals are tight. I don't get it." We stood there in the quiet, the futility of the situation hanging between us. The road was empty. No other cars had passed. The forest seemed to have grown darker, like a wall of impenetrable black. I was keenly aware of how isolated we were, and now I felt responsible. I couldn't just leave her here. The act of stopping, of engaging, had roped me into her story. She must have sensed my hesitation. She wrung her hands together, a genuinely anxious gesture. "Look," she began, her voice hesitant. "I hate to ask this. You've already been so kind. But could you possibly give me a lift to the next town? It's called Northwood. I think it's only about 20 miles up the road. There's a gas station, a motel. I can call a tow truck from there. I can give you money for gas." This was it, the line my brain had drawn before I even pulled over. Don't let a stranger in your car. A simple rule. But looking at her, this seemingly harmless, middle-aged woman, shivering slightly in the cold, the rule felt cruel. It felt paranoid. My mind was churning. Giving her a ride meant letting a complete unknown into my personal space. But the alternative, driving away and leaving her here, felt wrong. You get so focused on solving their problem that you stop thinking about the consequences for yourself. The boundaries don't break all at once. They just erode with a series of small, reasonable steps. I'd stopped. I'd tried to help. Giving her a ride was just the next compassionate thing to do. "Yeah," I heard myself say, the word coming out before I'd fully agreed to it. "Yeah, of course, get your things." A wave of pure relief washed over her face. "Oh, thank you. You're a lifesaver. I just have my purse." She reached into her car, grabbed a simple purse from the passenger seat, and shut the door. She didn't even lock it. "Not much point," she said with a weak laugh. She walked with me back to my car, and I opened the passenger door for her. She slid in, bringing a gust of cold air and a faint, hard-to-place scent with her. It wasn't perfume. It was something vaguely metallic and sweet, like old pennies and wilting flowers. I got back in the driver's seat, the space inside my car suddenly feeling much smaller. I turned the key, the engine roared to life, and we pulled back onto the highway. The broken-down car with its blinking lights got smaller and smaller in my rearview mirror until it was just two tiny, pulsing dots, and then nothing at all. We're at a point of no return in this story, and before we continue down this dark road, if these are the kinds of stories that keep you looking over your shoulder, make sure you're subscribed to Nightfall Narrative so you never miss an unsettling tale. Now, let's get back to the drive. The first 10 minutes were filled with slightly awkward but normal small talk. She thanked me again, profusely. I brushed it off, saying anyone would have done the same, even though I knew that wasn't true. I asked her where she was headed before the breakdown. "Just visiting family," she said. "Up north, don't get to see them much." Her answers were short, but not suspiciously so. Just the kind of answers you give a stranger to fill the silence. She asked my name, and I told her. She said hers was Sarah. We drove on, the road a dark, endless ribbon. The dense forest on either side was like a tunnel. I kept the radio off. The only sounds were the hum of the tires and the quiet hiss of the heater. As the minutes ticked by, though, I started to notice little things. Things that didn't quite add up. She said she was visiting family, but she had no luggage. Not even an overnight bag in the car she just abandoned. Just a purse. Who goes on a family trip with only a purse? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a quick trip. Maybe the bags were in the trunk. She was also unnaturally still, staring straight ahead, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Most people would be on their phone, trying to get a signal, calling someone. She hadn't even glanced at hers. We passed a sign for a scenic overlook where I knew you could usually get a bar or two of service. She made no move to check. I tried again. So, you know Northwood well? Is the motel right off the highway? She turned her head to look at me for the first time. Her eyes were dark, and in the dim light of the dashboard, her expression was unreadable. "I'm not sure," she said slowly. "I've only passed through." That was odd. She was so specific about the town, but now she didn't know it. If you were stranded, wouldn't you just ask to be taken to the asterisk next town? Why name one you weren't familiar with? Again, I pushed the thought away. I was overthinking it, letting the creepy road get to me. It's easier to tell yourself you're being paranoid than to admit you might have made a terrible, dangerous mistake. It was then that I glanced in my rearview mirror out of habit, and my eyes snagged on something. Headlights. Far back, maybe half a mile, but they were there. A flicker of relief went through me. Another traveler on this lonely road. I kept driving, my eyes flicking up to the mirror. The headlights stayed there. They weren't catching up, but they weren't falling behind either. They were perfectly paced to my speed. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Probably nothing. "Looks like we've got a traveling companion," I said, trying to sound casual, hoping for a normal reaction from her. A glance back, a shrug. Sarah didn't turn around. She didn't even move. Her eyes remained fixed on the road ahead. A small smile touched her lips, tiny and cold. "I'm sure it's nothing to worry about," she said, her voice smooth. Too smooth. The unease blossomed into dread. Her reaction was negative, all wrong. My knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. I focused on the headlights in the mirror. They were too far away, just 2 points of bright, white light. We drove in silence for another 5 miles. The silence was heavy now, charged with my fear. The headlights remained, a persistent, silent twin in my mirror. A bead of sweat trickled down my temple. I was intensely aware of the woman beside me, of her stillness, of that faint, sweet, metallic smell that seemed to be getting stronger. My heart was hammering. I had to know. I had to prove I was being ridiculous. "That car," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It looks familiar." I kept my eyes on the mirror. I slowed down just a little, hoping the car behind me would get closer, revealing itself to be a pickup, an SUV, anything other than what my gut was screaming it was. The car behind me also slowed down, maintaining its exact distance. And in that moment, as I slowed, the road curved slightly. For just a second, my own taillights reflected off the car behind me. It lit up the faintest outline of its chassis, the boxy shape, the distinct slope of the hood. It was a sedan, an older model, a late 90s model. My blood ran cold. It couldn't be, I had seen it. I had Tooed over its cold, silent engine. But my eyes in the mirror weren't lying. The shape was unmistakable. My head felt light. The hum of the tires roared in my ears. This was a trap. This whole thing was an elaborate, horrifying trap, and I hadn't just walked into it, I had driven into it. Willingly. Slowly, as if moving through water, I turned my head to look at the woman beside me. To look at Sarah. She was already looking at me, and she was smiling. It wasn't the small, tight smile from before. This was a grin that stretched her mouth unnaturally wide. It was a grotesque, predatory display that held no warmth, no humor. Her eyes, though, were not smiling. They were as cold and dark and empty as the forest outside. They were fixed on me, filled with a terrifying, triumphant knowledge. The mask of Sarah, the stranded motorist, was gone. In its place was this thing. This creature wearing her skin, its horrifying smile a monument to my own stupidity. Time seemed to fracture into a million sharp-edged moments of pure panic. My breath hitched in my throat. The car wasn't a safe cocoon anymore. It was a cage, and I was locked inside with a monster. "Who are you?" I stammered. The smile on her face widened. A low, guttural chuckle escaped her lips, a dry, rasping sound, like dead leaves scraping across pavement. "We were so worried you wouldn't stop," she said. The word we sent a jolt of ice-cold terror straight through my heart. It was confirmation. The driver of the car behind us was with her. This was planned. My mind raced, cycling through dead ends. I could speed up, but they would just follow. It was a 2-lane road with nowhere to go. I could pull over, but then I'd be cornered between them. My phone was in my pocket, but trying to dial 911 while fighting for control of my car seemed like a good way to end up wrapped around a tree. I had to get her out of my car. That was the only thought that mattered. My eyes darted around, scanning the darkness for any kind of advantage. Up ahead, I saw a faint break in the trees on the left. It wasn't a road, more like an old, overgrown logging track. It was a risk. It could be a dead end. But it was also unexpected. It broke their script. Without a second thought, I cranked the wheel hard to the left. The tires screamed as I swerved across the empty oncoming lane and slammed violently onto the dirt track. The car bucked and lurched. Branches scraped and screeched along the side of the car, a horrifying, nails-on-a-chalkboard sound. Behind me, I saw the other car's headlights swerve wildly as they followed, spitting gravel. The chase was on. The woman Sarah, or whatever she was thrown against the door. Her terrifying smile was gone, replaced by a snarl of pure fury. "Clever boy," she hissed. She lunged for the steering wheel. I shoved her back with my right arm, my eyes frantically trying to follow the narrow path in my bouncing headlights. The car was fishtailing. She lunged again, her fingernails clawing at my hand on the wheel, leaving fiery tracks in my skin. It was a desperate struggle for control. I knew I couldn't keep this up. The track was getting narrower. I had to do something now. With all my strength, I slammed on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt, throwing us both forward against our seatbelts. In the rearview mirror, I could see the other car's headlights bearing down on us, seconds away. I didn't hesitate. I unbuckled my seatbelt, turned, and slammed my full body weight into her. I was running on pure adrenaline. I fumbled for her door handle, found it, and pulled. The door swung open. "Get out!" I roared, shoving her with everything I had. She was strong, wiry, and powerful, but my panicked momentum took her by surprise. She tumbled out of the open door, landing in a heap on the dirt and leaves. I didn't wait to see more. I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires spun, caught, and the car shot forward. In my rearview mirror, I saw a final, horrifying scene lit by the rapidly approaching headlights of the second car. She was getting to her feet, her face a mask of pure rage. The other car, her car, the one that should have been dead, screeched to a stop right beside her. The driver's side door opened. I didn't see who got out. I didn't want to. I forced my eyes back to the path ahead and drove. I drove like my life depended on it because I knew it did. The dirt track eventually, miraculously, reconnected with another paved road. I had no idea where I was. I just picked a direction and floored it. Every pair of headlights behind me sent a fresh wave of terror through my body. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep them on the wheel. The scratches on my hand were burning, a physical reminder that it had all been real. Finally, I saw the glow of civilization. A gas station, a diner, a police station. I screeched into the police station parking lot and stumbled inside, babbling my story to the tired-looking F. Pfizer at the front desk. He listened, patiently at first, then with a growing look of skepticism. A kidnapping attempt, a ghost car, a woman with an impossible smile. To him, it must have sounded like I was drunk or crazy. But to their credit, they took it seriously enough to check it out. 2 officers had me get in the back of their cruiser, and we drove back out into the night, back to the highway. I directed them to the spot where I'd first seen her. There was nothing there. No broken down sedan, no broken glass, no sign that anyone had ever been there. We drove to the dirt track. My tire marks were there, clear in the soft earth. We followed them to the spot where I'd thrown her out. There was nothing, no footprints but my own, no sign of a struggle, no second set of tire tracks. It was as if her car and she herself had been ghosts. The police were polite, but I saw it in their eyes. They thought I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, had a vivid nightmare, and swerved off the road. They filed a report, but it was clear they didn't believe a word of it. I was left alone with my story, with the scratches on my hand and the unshakable memory of that smile. They made me feel like I was the one who was crazy. I never made it to my mom's birthday. I turned around and drove straight home, checking my rearview mirror the entire way. I sold my car the next week. I couldn't stand to sit in it, to smell that faint, lingering scent of old pennies and dead flowers that I could never seem to scrub out. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't found that dirt track. I don't know what they wanted or who we was. And that's the part that haunts me, the not knowing. What if I had been a little more tired, a little less paranoid? What if I had just kept driving on that smooth, straight road, right to whatever destination they had planned for me? So I'm telling you this, a cautionary tale from someone who learned the hard way. We're taught to help people, and it's a good, noble instinct. But the world is full of shadows, and not every hand that reaches out from the darkness is looking for help. Sometimes it's looking to pull you in. So please, for your own sake, learn from my mistake. Never, ever help anyone on the side of the road. If you have a story like this, something you can't explain that happened on a lonely road, the Nightfall Narrative community wants to hear about it. Share it in the comments below. And to make sure you don't miss our next descent into the dark, hit that like button and subscribe. This is Nightfall Narrative. Stay safe out there.